In this short video we're going to cover how to patch into a non-loaded rib. In this particular one it'll be on the bottom skin. I'm going to put the patch on the inside as has been kind of industry standard forever, but I will, at the risk of being ripped to shreds on the internet, tell you that it doesn't matter in reality if you put the patch on the inside or the outside of the parachute. So just so you can have a bit of fun with me, a lot of people say, oh, you should always put it on the inside, that way it kind of blows it onto the parachute. Well, if you're waiting for the air to blow your patch on the parachute, you're crazy. And then the other one I hear is, if you put it on the inside, it has less drag. Well, if you really think about it, it has exactly as many folded exposed edges, but I'll let you work through that. But anyway, for the test, make sure you put them on the inside, because that is still in the syllabus. But in reality, I don't care. If you've not yet seen the basic patch-in video, please go and watch that, because a lot of stuff I'm not going to repeat. It's already been covered. This is for folks who've already got some patching experience, but they want to see how to do this. Let's take a look at some housekeeping. You're going to want to put a tag near the damage so you can find it more quickly. And I recommend you put a clamp with rubber faces on it on the rib that's part of the problem. Also clamp the risers to something, a bucket in this case, so that you don't end up tying this thing up in a knot. Throughout the video you're also going to see me using this. It's just a piece of masonite that I've put a piece of card on and clamped it to the bench, and it allows me easier access to the area I'm working on. And that allows me then to clamp the parachute down so that I can get at it more easily. What I'm going to do now is break out the stitching that holds the rib in about 12 inches either side of the damage. I'll then go on the inside and I'll clear out any leftover old thread. Please make sure that you don't pull on that thread and affect the tension of the remaining stitches. At this point, take a 6-inch patch-in square and center it on the seam so you've got 3 inches either side. Draw all the way around it. And then the last thing you'll see me do is just check and see what kind of fabric the parachute's made out of. If I can breathe through it, it's F111. If I can't, it's ZP. You'll also notice here I'm using a Sharpie. You would never do that normally, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing for the purpose of this movie. Normally you'd use a Dixon marking pencil or something of that nature. Now I'll select the material I need to do the patch, which is ZP. In this case I'm going to use a different color just so it stands out more. Normally you'd use something to match. I'll now take my 6.5-inch patch-in square and I'll draw a square following the weave of the fabric, and then I'll slide it over a 1/2 inch and draw another square. That'll leave me with a 6-inch square inside a 7-inch square. I'll just fill out the corners that are missed. And now that's my 6-inch square with a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around it. I'll also put little tell marks on here to indicate where the warp threads are. Then it's time just to cut out your patch. And then I like to take it and just give the corners a little set. Some folks prefer to iron it. If you do, make sure you put the iron on nylon setting, please. Then it's off to start patching. Once we get to the sewing machine, the first thing you're going to want to check is, does the needle have a burr? Do you have the right size thread? Is it the correct thread tension? Are your stitches per inch good? All your other pre-sewing checks. Now you can take your parachute, take the clamp off the nose, but scrunch up the bottom skin of the parachute so you can get access to the area you're patching more easily, and then reapply the clamp so it holds that scrunched up area. It'll just make it a little easier than fighting the whole thing. Now feed the parachute into its position. I prefer to start in this corner, as you've seen from my how to do the basic patch video, and then I'll just make sure that my warp lineups are done, and then I'll start sewing a patch on in the normal manner. So I'll try and stay now approximately a 1/16 of an inch from the edge, and you're going to spend a lot of time checking the area below you is clear, so it's just that skin and the patch. In fact, if you're going to make any mistake, it's going to be sewing the wrong things to themselves, and it just takes a little bit of time and experience. There's no super trick to it, just pay attention. And yes, you're going to do it wrong a few times, we all do. Just get over it and get on with it. Once you've gone all the way around, do a standard oversew, cut the thread and remove the parachute from the sewing machine, and now you'll have time to sit back and admire your work, hopefully, but at the very least inspect it and make sure that you haven't sewn any other wrong stuff to itself. If you have, remove the stitches and do any oversews as necessary. Now it's back onto the board that we were working on, and use our ruler to set that seam distance. That trick is also in the old video. Also with our little fold allowances, and now cut out the damaged area. Back to the machine, feed your work back in, and make sure that you're starting on the exact opposite side from your last oversew. No, it's not a strength thing, it's just it won't fight you as hard if you don't have shrinkage to deal with initially. Then all the way back around, paying attention to make sure you don't sew the wrong thing to itself. Just keep clearing the fabric beneath you as you go. Remove your work from the machine, and again inspect it, make sure you didn't get anything caught up in your sewing that you didn't want there. Now feed the parachute back onto your board, making sure you're on the inside of it, so follow the cell down. And then sadly I didn't catch this very good in the video, but take clamps now and then pull the rib so it's under tension and clamp it on either side. This is a great trick. It'll help the rib to naturally go back to that seam. You can probably see it lining up there. And then put little tell marks periodically. Again, you wouldn't use a Sharpie, but it just allows you to match that rib to its location as you're sewing it back in. Some folks like to use pins, that's fine, I just don't prefer them myself. Now, not everybody has a fancy dancy twin needle machine with a puller like they do at the factory to put the ribs back in, but that's okay. You can do just as good on a single needle machine. Feed your parachute back in. Typically you want the rib to your left side with just skin on the right. So skin is blue here, rib is gold. And then you want to trim out any mess that's still there and start sewing. Typically I like to do it on the most outboard row. And you want to start at least 4 inches before the end of the old seam. You want a good overlap. If you take a look at your parachute from the factory, wherever they ran out of thread, you'll see they do about a 4-inch oversew. This seems to be a good idea. Then follow that seam down, making sure that you hit those line-up marks you put there as you go. Go all the way to the end, and then trim yourself out from there. Now pull the parachute completely clear of the sewing machine because you want to check again that you didn't sew any of the wrong stuff to itself. Get a little pinch on the top skin, for instance, and if you did, just unpick any offending stitches and re-sew as necessary. But if you did great, just follow down now on the inboard seam, paying attention to keep the rib sitting flat on the skin, so make sure both those surfaces are nice and flat against each other as you sew. Take it easy. Pull the parachute out from the machine when you're finished and check your work. Nearly time to pat yourself on the back now about a job well done. This might seem a bit intimidating at first, but trust me, if you can do a basic patch, you can pull off this patch. Good luck.